It was a quiet summer night in 1912. Nothing felt unusual. Inside a small farmhouse in Villisca, Iowa, a family of 6 had just gone to bed. 2 young girls were staying over. Laughter had filled the house just hours before, but sometime after midnight, something changed. Because before the sun rose, every single person inside that house would be dead. That night, 2 sisters were invited to stay over. They were just children. They played, laughed, and fell asleep in a house they trusted. But what they didn't know, someone else was already there, watching, waiting, inside the same house while everyone slept. Sometime after midnight, no one knows exactly when. There were no screams reported. No one heard a struggle, which means whoever entered that house moved silently, room to room, bed to bed, and no one woke up until it was too late. The weapon was already inside the house, an axe taken from the family's own property. It wasn't brought in, which means this wasn't random. Someone knew the house, knew where everything was, and knew exactly what they were going to do. Morning came, but something felt wrong. The house was too quiet. No one came out. No one answered. Until a neighbor decided to check. What they found inside would become one of the most disturbing crime scenes in American history. And something about it made no sense. Morning came, but something felt off. The house stayed quiet longer than it should. No footsteps, no voices. A neighbor walked closer. The door wasn't fully shut, and right before stepping inside, they hesitated, because something about that silence felt wrong. Inside, everything looked in place. Chairs, tables, personal belongings. Nothing overturned, nothing missing. But the deeper they walked, the heavier the air became. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt frozen. Then something didn't belong. Not outside, not brought in. It came from inside. An ordinary object, something familiar, something already there, which made it worse because it meant this wasn't sudden. It was chosen. Then came the details. Small things, easy to miss, but impossible to ignore. Windows covered, mirrors hidden. It wasn't random. It wasn't panic. Whoever did this took their time and made sure something couldn't be seen. At that moment, it became clear. This wasn't chaos. This wasn't sudden. Everything had intention. The silence, the stillness, the details. This wasn't a crime of panic. It was something else. Something controlled. Something planned from the beginning. There was someone else, not inside the house, but outside, watching. A neighbor later said they saw movement that night. Not one, but more than one figure. Moving near the house when everyone should have been asleep. They didn't understand it then, but now that memory felt different. Because it meant someone saw something before it was too late. Days later, someone came forward, a woman. She said she saw a man near the house, not someone she recognized, not a neighbor, not a traveler. He wasn't just passing by, he was standing there, watching, long enough to make her uncomfortable. She remembered his face, but no one else did, and that made it worse. Then came something no one could explain. A detail that didn't fit. Not loud, not obvious, but wrong. A footprint left in a place where no one should have been. Too clear to ignore, too strange to understand. Because it wasn't just there, it was placed as if someone stood there, watching everything. Inside the house, something else didn't make sense. A small detail, easy to miss but impossible to ignore once seen. An object was no longer where it should be. Not broken, not taken, just moved. Carefully, deliberately, as if someone had been inside after everything was already over. What disturbed investigators the most wasn't what was there, but what wasn't. No signs of panic, no struggle spreading through the house. Everything felt contained, controlled, as if no one had the chance to react. Not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't. And that changes everything, because it means whoever did this was always one step ahead. The Moore farmhouse stood in the darkness, its wooden walls creaking softly under the cold Iowa wind. Inside, Josiah and Sarah slept with their 4 children, unaware of the horror that lurked outside. Shadows from a faint lantern danced across the rooms, stretching long over the wooden floor. Outside, a figure paused at the edge of the porch, silent, watching, their presence almost a whisper in the night. Every heartbeat inside the house was unknowingly counting down to a nightmare. Inside the Moore farmhouse, the night was thick with silence. Suddenly, a faint creak echoed from the hallway outside the children's bedroom. One of the children stirred, but the sound vanished before anyone could investigate. Lantern light flickered, casting long, distorted shadows across the wooden walls. Outside, the figure lingered, barely moving, yet its presence was felt in every corner of the house. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the night itself was pressing down. The farmhouse was swallowed by darkness, the lanterns inside casting trembling light across the rooms. From the corner of the hallway, faint whispers seemed to emerge from the shadows themselves. One of the Moore children turned in their sleep, sensing the presence, but unable to awake. Outside, the figure moved silently along the side of the house, its footsteps muffled by the soft earth. The air grew heavier, as though the very walls were pressing down, carrying the unspoken terror of the night. A faint metallic glint caught the moonlight outside the Moore farmhouse. Through the open window, the figure's outline became visible, an axe held silently in hand. Inside, the family slept unawares, shadows dancing across their faces from the flickering lantern. Every creak of the floor and whisper of wind seemed amplified, filling the house with tension. Outside, the figure paused for a moment, a silent predator waiting for the night to fully claim its victims. The farmhouse was still. The lanterns flickered one last time before darkness swallowed the rooms entirely. Inside, the Moore family lay motionless, their breaths frozen in the cold night air. Outside, the figure vanished into the shadows, leaving only the echo of a single step. The wooden floorboards creaked no more. The wind held its breath, and the house itself seemed to mourn. A chilling silence settled over the farmhouse, marking the end of a night that would haunt Villisca forever.